All right, we are live. So today is I think this is episode 7 of the live podcast. I am Elle and I am the host of the Cleverly Changing podcast. I wanted to do an extension of the podcast where it's not just audio sessions, but also a visual component so that families who are visual and interested in homeschooling will be able to see and really get a feel of what it's like from parents who have been there and done that before. So we are joined by a special guest today, Vanessa, who I just love all of the nature filled things that you are doing because my family and I, we love being outdoors. And so I wanted to really get a chance to talk to you about bridging that gap between being indoors and being outdoors. And I know that all of us are facing dealing with the pandemic. And so it's so important for us to get outside and let our kids explore. And so I think this is conversation is so much more critical now than ever. So I wanted to just say thank you so much for joining us on the Cleverly Changing podcast. So can you tell everybody a little bit about you?
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and share. Interesting facts, I never thought I would ever homeschool. I had my son and I was home with him from the beginning, and all my friends were like, oh, you're going to homeschool, right, one day? And I was like, no, why would I do that? And then the closer it got to school time, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to homeschool. So I just went out there and I did all the research. I'm sure all the things everyone's doing right now, learning all the different options, and kind of after that, I went out and I tried everything possible that we had available near us, like all the different co-ops. And then I found that I just wanted to create like what I wanted, what I was looking for my son and I and our family, like just didn't exist. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it. Um, so I'm Vanessa. I am a military spouse and we move often. So that's kind of just become my niche. Any place we are, I create what doesn't exist yet. So that used to be like mom's workout groups, and now it's turned into my niche is creating and leading and helping other people create a nature-based homeschool co-op. I love homeschooling, and I can't imagine not doing it. And I think those families that have already been homeschooling are kind of at the advantage right now with as far as schooling goes. But I think it's great that we're coming together to help new homeschoolers. So I've really been kind of putting myself out there in every aspect I can to share how to create a homeschool co-op. I know too it's going to look different for everyone's different comfort level as if they want to gather, if they want to be in nature. But really what I've put together, even families can do it just with their family. They can go out in nature and be on a trail and use all the tools that I use to create a co-op.
That is awesome. So I want to tell everybody a little bit about how old our kids are. So for those of you who are joining for the first time, I am a mom of twins. My daughters are 11 years old and they have always been homeschooled. So they've never been to a traditional school. This has always been our way of life. So for us, it's a lifestyle and it's something that I embrace. How old are your little ones, Vanessa?
I can totally agree with you that it's a lifestyle because so I have one son, he's 7, and just having him at home from the beginning and kind of transitioning into homeschooling once he got to that kindergarten age, like it didn't feel like a huge shift for us. It was kind of like our lifestyle was just changing every year as he was getting older.
Yes, and I love that you said it wasn't a shift because we're always as parents teaching our kids. So to start homeschooling them isn't really that different. You're just you're just extending the lessons that you've been teaching your kid all along.
Yes, that's very true. It just shifts more from like when they're younger, I feel like it's more that extension of natural lifestyle of like, okay, you want to help me cook, you want to help me clean up, and that kind of thing, to like now, okay, we're going to incorporate more letters into it. And as we pass the ball, we're going to count with it.
Right, right. So we did that sort of organic learning, is what I call it, where if we're playing outside, we would incorporate numbers, we would sing songs. And I know that you do a lot of singing with the co-op and with your child. So for me, I'm not much of a singer, but I do feel like singing is so important for kids in that early developmental stage. And that's really how they pick up a lot of things with rhythms. And it's like they're learning how to explore the world through music. And it's so like nature in and of itself is very musical. And so to incorporate song and with what you do, I think is very powerful for children. And of course, kids have different learning styles. So I know some people are like, well, my kid isn't that auditory, but you know, even though your kid's dominant style may not be auditory, they're still learning by listening. So it's something that we all do, and it's something that is great to incorporate. So, can you tell us a little bit how you go about incorporating songs?
So something else too, I feel like is hugely important that they can learn from us from music is when I first started leading our co-ops, like I did not sing in front of large groups of people, and I found myself, it's funny, the first co-op I joined, my son was 4 years old and we would all volunteer for different things. And I was like, I'll do anything, just don't sign me up for leading the songs. And after like 4 years later now, like I'm like, I got it. I'll sing in front of the whole world. Like I think it's a transition too for us as parents to learn like those words we're saying by me saying like, oh, I'm not a good singer. I don't want to sing in front of everyone. My son could hear that over and over and then think, oh, I'm not a good singer. My mom said she isn't. Like I don't want to do that. So I think it's hugely important, like whether we think we're a good singer or not, it's also a journey of ourselves of getting comfortable. Like, I want my son to be comfortable singing a song anywhere he is, so I need to be comfortable and demonstrate that. So I our first couple co-ops I didn't lead the singing. I did join in and I sang, but then when it got to the point that I was ready to create my co-op how I wanted it, I led the whole thing for a year. So I had a year of getting really comfortable being the one singing the songs, leading everyone through it, and it was amazing how it just shifted. And now I actually like love singing, and my son and I will sing in the car and we'll sing in the house. And I've created our daily rhythm, like I'll sing songs to change it. So we'll have a good morning song, we'll have a song like we need to clean up toys. Like it does make everything more fun. It's like the same as when you're cooking dinner. It's a lot more fun if you dance while you do it than be like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this. Like you might as well put on some music, sing and dance, and make the experience totally different. And I think that's a benefit with homeschooling too. Like, yeah, it's not super fun some days to be like, okay, we got to do this, and it's not super easy. So why not we incorporate these things that we all like naturally make us feel better and more excited about things?
Yes, most definitely. And I like that you just brought out that even if it's not something that we normally want to do as a parent, it's important not to necessarily share those negative thoughts with our kids because they will pick up on that. And I think that is something that happens with vegetables as well. Like if you say, oh, I don't like that vegetable, and your kid hears that, a lot of times they're not going to want to eat that vegetable either. So with my kids, when they were really little, I would try things that I didn't necessarily like as a child with them again. And I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. And usually it was like a positive experience, but I would often approach things as if I was new to it so that I wouldn't necessarily share my thoughts with them. And I definitely remember doing that more so with like food and vegetables and things like that. But I also think, you talked about singing and how it kind of changes the mood. Right now, with the pandemic, I think that is so critical in what we have to do because many of us are home more so than normal. Some places have opened up more than others. I know in my area, a lot of places are actually still closed. And so we are a family that usually is out exploring and doing numerous things. And so we've been home a lot more. And so you have to kind of change that perspective when you are home to have a better mood by dancing, putting on music and things like that. And so I think to be able to incorporate that and know how to do it in a effective manner is just something that parents can use as a tool to help gather their school, because like you said, some days are going to be challenging, but when you make it fun, when your kids see that you have a positive outlook about it and you want to do it and you're excited about it and you're, just open, they're willing to be more open as well. So what made you incorporate so much music into your co-op?
So I really like the Waldorf philosophy. So I took a lot of components from there. Like I kind of called it like a Waldorf inspired in the woods kind of co-op. And then I led a Forest Friday too. But I honestly didn't like have much art or handwork or music or any of that stuff in my life until I started more like homeschooling my son with the philosophies from that. So I love how it makes you like in too, like I started knitting and crocheting and doing these things that I haven't done for years. And I also went from saying like I can't draw to now my husband and my son will be like, Mom, your chalkboard drawings are getting a lot better. So I found so much from that philosophy that I love. And I know and I think that's the thing that can be overwhelming when you start, you're like, okay, I'm going to homeschool. And I think there's two different sides to it, like the people that want to homeschool more long term and the people that are going to homeschool short term until they can like re-enter school again. And with if you're deciding like, okay, I'm going to homeschool, maybe it'll be for more than a year, or maybe like I just want to homeschool and change our whole lifestyle. Like maybe our what we were doing before like wasn't feeling good, and this is an opportunity to really change for our whole family and come together in different ways. And then you start looking at there's so many different philosophies, and I feel like too, even though I gravitate towards Waldorf, I definitely don't do it all that way. So you can pick and choose those things from it, but I honestly don't know if I wouldn't have gone the Waldorf route if I would have gotten so into the music and the arts and reconnected with that part.
Wow. So I'm going to just interject and put a little commercial right here. If you are listening to the replay of this broadcast, leave in the comments section the word replay so that we will know that you watched. Also, if you are watching right now and you have questions, you can go ahead and put those in the chat box. If you have questions for me or Vanessa, we'd love to answer your questions as well. So thank you all that are joining us. Thank you for joining us. And all right, so I had a couple of questions that I really wanted to talk to you about. So let me ask you the first question. The first question is, um, how do you make learning fun? I know we just talked about song and dance. What are some other ways that you make learning fun?
So we do a lot of like we don't have textbooks, we don't have workbooks. We kind of create our own. So say we're practicing the letters, like we'll do rainbow stripes on a piece of paper, and we'll make like our own workspace. But we use a lot of like gems for math, a lot of stories. So I'll have gems and these cute little gnomes, and I'll story tell with them, and we'll work through the projects, like through our math problems. And then we also, so like skip counting and all that kind of stuff, I like to take it outside. We kick a soccer ball, we throw a baseball. Really, I like to keep changing the environment, and as much as I can do outside, I find it just like the fresh air, everything makes it just feel more like you want to do it and you want to absorb the information. And I find too, like my son definitely is not a huge fan of math. That's a subject he would skip over if I let him. So I'll be like, okay, go get dressed, like brush your teeth, and then come downstairs and we're going to get our school lesson started. Meet me in our music room. And so I'll have set up like our bench, and I'll make like a little shop, so he can choose what he wants to sell, and we write it on the dry erase board, like how much it costs, and we practice the math through that way. So definitely if we're in a space that just our normal is not exciting and fun and it's more feeling like a struggle, I'll completely change it and get us excited about it. One thing that we always both love to do is I get out this map and we have our gnomes, and we'll talk about direction with the compass, we'll talk about time, and then we'll pick different places we either want to road trip and drive to in the United States, or we'll take it internationally and we'll fly, and we'll figure out all these like life skills, with also practicing time, math. But it's fun. And then we'll pull up like a YouTube video of like if you traveled to this place, and so it also makes it fun because we love to travel. So we're like, I want to go there. Like we could do this, and we'll study the animals there. I just feel like there's so many different ways that I feel like homeschooling is an opportunity not to do school at home. It's an opportunity just to make everything where you get excited about learning, and it's like excited about learning for the rest of your life.
Yes, I like to call it, and I know that I'm not the person who coined this, but I like to say the world is your classroom. And so that's really my philosophy. And what I love about what you said, it really touched me because that's how I taught my daughters. I'm not one that's really big on curriculum. So everybody who knows me, I do give my kids some written work because in my state I have to show proof and I have to keep a portfolio. But when they were smaller in elementary school, I literally set up I have twins, so we had two cash registers and they could buy their toys. Like we put little stickers and prices on everything and they could actually purchase it. So we made learning very practical and fun. And I think that that makes a world of difference. We often used games in order to teach them and quiz them. You talked about skip counting. My kids learned how to skip count very early because it was a song. Like there are tons of skip counting songs and kids are just picking up different things. And so when they started to do multiplication because they had learned how to skip count, it was much easier. And so it really gets that mental math. So a lot of the things that you talked about are things that I can relate to. When the first philosophy that we actually started with was more of a classical philosophy, and we don't necessarily do it now, but early on, that was really the model that we looked at, which caused them to do a lot of memory work and really learn that foundation. And it sounds like that's your approach as well, to get your kids mind really thinking about what they're learning so that they'll know how to apply it and be actually using that practical knowledge. So that sounds great. So I have another question. What are some ways that you can engage young children throughout the day? So I know one of the questions that I get from people like on social media is if I'm with my kid all day, what do I do with them?
So I highly encourage everyone to establish a daily rhythm and then also a weekly rhythm. So a weekly rhythm would be, for example, what ours was. We recently moved from Hawaii, but in Hawaii it was Monday. We had our Waldorf in the woods. Tuesday was a home day where we did our lesson time. Wednesday was kind of like our free day. We would do a field trip, or if we needed to do a lesson, we would do it that day. Thursday was our home day. We'd do our second lesson of the week, and then Friday was Forest Friday. So that Monday and Friday, we were outside in the forest from like 8 a.m. to sometimes 3 p.m. And it was nice because that's all we ever had. I made sure we never had to do errands that day. I made sure we never had a play date afterward, anything. So I was very intentional with our time and planning because that way I just didn't like it. I was like, okay, we're going to go to our co-op and then we got to do this, 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 and this. And you're constantly like looking at the time and trying to, it just didn't feel good. I wanted to go out there, both of us feel nourished and being with our friends and in nature and come home and just feel really good. So then daily rhythm, those days we were at home, it would be like wake up, kind of take a slower start to the day, have breakfast, read some books outside, watch sunrise, and then we would transition into kind of like what chores need to be started, laundry, that kind of stuff. We would have a snack, and then we would get into our main lesson time. After that, we would have lunch, and then it was more like kind of once my son got out of nap time, that was his quiet time. Like he would play, do whatever he wanted to do on his own. And if I needed to work or plan for the next day or for a co-op, anything, that's when I would work on it then. And then we would come back together. We would usually read some more books or do some artwork and then get dinner started. And then the rest of the night was just playing outside with kids in the neighborhood. And we come together, start bedtime routine. So having that weekly flow of knowing, like my son would always know, like we have like gnomes for everything, but he would know like what color of the day, where we were in the week, but also with our activities of like, okay, Monday we're at co-op, Tuesday we're home. Like he knew what was coming, and also too with the daily rhythm on those home days, like it's comforting. I feel like for kids to understand like where we are in the day of like, okay, it's lunchtime and then this is usually what time dad comes home, instead of like, what are we doing now? What are we doing now? like, Mom, can we do this? Mom, like giving them that structure and that comfort makes them feel good, I think, when they know what's coming next, instead of, because otherwise, like, if you just wake up in the morning and they're like, what are we doing today? And you're like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Like, you get 100 questions that day.
You do. And also sometimes it affects their behavior. So if you have a kid who never knows what's going to happen, sometimes they will act out. And so having a daily rhythm, as you called it, and I like that you call it a rhythm instead of a schedule, because I feel like the key to homeschooling is that we need to be flexible. And so calling it a rhythm is you want it to be a rhythm. You want there to be a flow to your day, but you don't want it to be so strict that you feel compelled, like at this time we're absolutely doing this, because it should be a natural progression and a natural flow. So I like that you call it a rhythm. So that's
Yeah,
great.
to me, like, just like, even the word routine, like, just feels too, like, I don't know, it doesn't feel good to me, like being like, this is your to-do list or this is your routine, you must do it. Instead, like, to me, rhythm feels like, oh, this is something I want to do. This is how we live life every day.
Yes, yes. All right. So how can parents come up with hands-on activities on their own? Because I know with parents, and if you could give just some tips, because for some parents this comes naturally. I know for me, I loved being outdoors. I loved going to the park. I loved picking up, calling out colors and playing I Spy. But for some people, it doesn't come naturally. So how do they find hands-on activities that their kids can do?
So, number one thing I wouldn't do is go on Pinterest, because you can go down the rabbit hole and pin all these things and never do it. Um, something I think one of the things we can do is kind of just reflect on ourselves and our childhood and think about those things we really love to do. Like, I loved playing Foursquare. So we got a Foursquare ball, and there's a school near us, and we go play Foursquare. So it could be things like, like sports, or it could be just going outside and collecting things from nature, and then deciding you don't have to go look up someone else's artwork to decide what you want to do. I really try to avoid that, because, I mean, Instagram, I love, it's beautiful. There's so many ideas. And I'll kind of, like, as I'm browsing, get an idea. But then when it comes time for us to actually do it, I like just creating our own version, because otherwise you're going to be like, well, they did it like this, so we have to do it like this. And I like giving my son the opportunity to be like, how do you want to do it? How do we want to make this? So I think just having natural materials, like, it's so easy to go out in nature, collect rocks, collect sticks, collect leaves, all these things. And I think actually if parents kind of step back and ask the kids, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to create? Like, they come up with amazing ideas. Like, a lot of times it's us getting in the way of pre-planning everything for them, that we kind of miss out. And then they're not as interested, like, how many times could it happen, like, you order all this stuff online and you're like, we're going to do this and we're going to get all excited, and you're working so hard to set all the materials out, and then they're interested in it for like 2 minutes and they're like, I'm done. So one thing I have and I love, and it's always gotten so much use and play and imagination and creations, is we've always had a mud dirt kitchen. We still have one in our yard, and it gets the most use hands down of anything else.
Wow, that's a lot. Like, that is terrific. And I think that, for those of us who are just now embracing this type of lifestyle, as I call it, I think it's important to give yourself that grace starting out. Be flexible and be willing to ask your kid, what, and find out what their interests are. And I think right now, this is a period of time where parents get a chance to learn their kids, learn their personalities, learn their natural rhythms, learn what they naturally seek out, and what their habits and their interests are directed to. And I think that it just, this is definitely a different time, but we spend so much of our lives over scheduling our kids. And so I feel like what we've been taken into is kind of this grace period where we don't have to schedule. It's like we get to study them and learn them from a different perspective. And so I think, just being able to explore along with your kid, it gives you a special bond too, because those memories are things that you're cultivating together. And so as they grow, they'll have those. And imagination is one of the things that really creates inventors. And so it's a skill and it's something that's natural that you don't want to take away from your child. You really want to foster those sort of that sort of ideology and that mindset in your kid, because you never know what they can invent, what they can create, what they'll do. And so you want to give them that space to tap into that side of themselves. So I love that you have embraced that. So that's great. All right. So the next question is, what do you do when you notice that your child is having a difficult time focusing? So we talked a little bit early that homeschooling, while it does give you a chance to be, flexible and open with your kid, there are some days that are going to be challenging. That's just inevitable in parenting, in teaching, and homeschooling and guiding. So I like to say that homeschooling is more of a guide rather than teaching. And so what advice do you have for parents when their kid seems frustrated?
So first thing I always suggest is take a deep breath. So when my son Kai is like frustrated with math, I'll just say like, okay, let's sit up, let's take a deep breath. Like, are you frustrated? And he'll say like, yeah. He'll say yes. And I'll kind of ask him like, okay, can you tell me like what part of this is frustrating you? Like, is it you just don't want to do it? Like, is it just not making sense? Do you want me to explain it another way? So really like talking to him, trying to understand. I mean, we can kind of like look at what's going on as parents, but also it's good to hear from them because we might be missing something, you know. They might be hungry, they might be just overtired, they might just not like it. So one thing I've done that has kind of helped, like if we're struggling after many days and it's the same thing, there's this concept of kind of letting it go to rest. So taking a couple of days off from it, letting them sleep on it, and sometimes they'll come back and then it all of a sudden makes sense instead of like just trying to keep fighting through it and being like, we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna like just letting it rest for a little bit. And that's the benefit of homeschooling. Like we have this time. We're not on some certain schedule. We don't have to finish it by the end of the week, the end of the month. We can add it in anytime, you know. Um, but really just having a conversation about it of like, okay, math frustrates you, but let me show you the areas we use math in life. And this is why it's important for us to learn, but we can also shift it to a way that you feel like it's easier for you and you're understanding it more, which is totally going to be different for every child. And I'm sure even with you with twins, like your twins probably had their own like things that were super easy for them and super things that were more challenging. If we're like really, really just getting like we're struggling through something, I'm like, okay, my goal is always, I don't want it to be a fight. I don't want it to turn into something like we're both like, oh, we have to do this today. So I'll change the environment. Like I love taking picnic blankets out, changing a story with it, coming up with different ideas, but also teaching like we need to finish what we start in some scenarios. And so this like let's finish it, because then you're gonna feel so accomplished once you do, and once it does click and you understand it. So just trying different scenarios that are more exciting about it. There are times like I will put oils on Kai's back and I'm like, we're gonna really focus today and we're gonna put this on your spine, we're gonna breathe through it, and but I think the most important thing is just that communication, like them knowing you're not mad at them, like them not think like you don't want them to like think like, oh, my mom thinks I'm stupid, why am I not getting this, you know. Like more than anything, I feel like the best thing I heard was, if you trust your child and your child trusts you, like you can get through any subject, any situation, because you have that communication. You're like, I know we can do this. Like, let's figure out how we're going to do this.
I love that. Trust is huge. And I think that with homeschooling, you have to learn how to build trust because you want your kid to be confident. And I think that is one of the things, that's one of the reasons why we homeschool. We want to build that inner confidence. And nobody's going to love your child more than you do. So you have to instill that trust. So, in the last few minutes that we have, can you tell everybody? I'm definitely going to do a blog post to share where they can connect with you, where they can find you. But if you could also tell them verbally as well.
So I'm on Instagram. It's Vanessa's Holistic Living, where I share all kinds of things about homeschooling. We also like to travel, and we're a military family, so we move often. So I share all kinds of our favorite nature spots. That's kind of my goal every time we move is I make a list of stuff. We lived in California for 2 years and we did 72 road trips. So I definitely love to go all the places and see all the things we've never seen before. So I share a lot about that, share about food, fitness, pretty much every aspect of my lifestyle. Just I'm all about helping other people be healthier and happier. And I totally feel like moms and dads, parents need to really make sure they're healthy and happy in the journey of homeschooling and also nurturing the children. It's all a whole full circle of happy and healthy, and homeschooling. It's definitely important to have all that stuff. So I love just sharing our lifestyle. I'll share our projects we're doing and stuff to give people ideas, but I really am just an open book and I love to help people. So definitely reach out on Instagram. I'm always happy to answer questions. I have a YouTube channel. Back when I used to lead a bunch of workouts, that was my background was actually in the wellness industry before I had Kai. So I led giant mom workout groups. We moved to the Mojave Desert where it was a super negative environment, but I went there determined and I made a workout group that like 200, 300 moms came through with their kids and turned out to be amazing. So that's just my niche. I go places and I create what needs to be created and it continues on without me. But yeah, so I'm always available. Love to make new friends.
So what is the name of your YouTube so that they can put that in? And I definitely, if you guys are watching, I'm going to put a link in the comment section when this is over. I have to finish up the blog post, but I will definitely put that in the blog post. But I want you to tell everybody where they would go on YouTube to find you.
So if you just Google or YouTube Vanessa Hartman, it's a picture of myself and my son and my husband, but there's more than one Vanessa Hartman, so it's kind of confusing. But I actually, so I also have a guide on Etsy that I created. It's called A Year in Nature. It's how everything I did the 3 years to kind of create and lead our homeschool co-ops. And we recently moved, and so I'm in the process of starting it all over again, of creating another one. But the girls that came there, it was so helpful for their families to have that co-op, and it was really life-changing for a lot of people. So they're like, just make it a guide so more people can do it. So I did that, and on the YouTube channel there's also monthly, like for August, this is the song we sang, the finger play. So that way people, for me, like I need that audio to learn a song, so I have that on there too. So my YouTube's kind of changing from workout to homeschooling. We'll see what happens, but yeah, if you just search Vanessa Hartman, but I know there's more than one Vanessa Hartman. So I'll give you the link for sure.
Okay, so everybody definitely check out her YouTube, check out her IG, because I just feel like it's important to embrace nature and to get to know yourself and build that confidence. Not only are we trying to build confidence in our kids, we're also building our confidence because many of us haven't necessarily had an opportunity to really get to know ourselves on an inner, deeper level. And so homeschooling does definitely challenge you to do that. So I think this has been a wonderful conversation, and it's been great getting to know about you and what you do. And, I just encourage everybody, if you're looking to learn about nature and just other things, definitely follow people on Instagram. Is really a great place to connect with other homeschoolers and see what they're actually doing because, we often take pictures and snap those moments and share them with other people. So, thank you guys for joining us, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's show is going to be at 3 p.m. So, thanks for tuning and watching Homeschool Hits. All right, bye now.